You think this looks cool?
Yeah, that's fine.
You gonna like look up at you gonna look up at me?
Yeah, I'm gonna
I
look
should
up.
pro Why? It makes me feel like I'm towering over you. Um, my name is Booty Shoes. I just turned 29. I'm bisexual, and as for gender, that's um a little bit, I don't know, a little bit of a question mark, I guess. I don't really have a label for it. I grew up in the United States. I grew up in several different states because my both my parents were in the military. Um, but the last mm, since I was 13, so well over almost 2 decades. Almost 2 decades lived in Tennessee, in East Tennessee. I graduated college with a graphic design degree, and right now I'm just sort of a stay-at-home wife. And that's it for background, I think. Growing up, I don't honestly, when you're a kid, I don't feel like you have a favorite place. It's only when you're like looking back at it that you sort of like have a really favorite place. I really liked living in the mountains in New Mexico. I lived in like Ruidoso, and I really liked living in Las Cruces, which is not in the mountains, it's on the other side of the mountains. Um, but I honestly just really like where I live now. Yeah.
How long have you been playing VRChat?
Not really long. Probably, like less than a year. I definitely don't really play it very often, but definitely since you've started playing VR Chat, I guess I downloaded it to see what it's about. But it's been like probably less than a year or so. I think it's really interesting. I think it's really cool how much like player content there is, like player made content, and that seems to be a really cool way of getting people together and finding communities and stuff. I definitely think it's like one of those really young people places. It seems like there's just a lot of kids and people younger than high school age on here. So I have like a billion different hobbies. I really like crafting. Mostly I do a lot of fiber arts, so I do a lot of sewing and fiber stuff with like crochet. I've been spinning my own yarn. But I've also dabbled in things like leatherwork and woodworking. And I'm trying to think of what else. But the sewing and the yarn spinning and stuff, those are like the big things I have for me right now going on. So my mom always sewed my Halloween costumes, and she used to make a lot of clothes for me, especially when I was a baby. She'd make my baby clothes, and um, so I think sewing has always just been around, and I just I don't know, probably just came about it naturally. But especially in college, I started really getting into watching people do historical like fashion sewing and stuff. Like Angela Clayton's like the big person who got me into historical fashion and things. And so I started wanting to make my own things. And one year I got a gift, like a rather sizable amount of money as a gift, and so I spent that money on getting my own like sewing machine, and I sort of haven't looked back. And in terms of like spinning and yarn work, I started getting into, of course, like crocheting first, like cheap yarn from Walmart, cheap like crochet hooks, and starting off with that. And then I don't know why, but I got really invested in the process of how you go from either like wool from an animal or plants that create fibers into making a product such as like clothing. And so spinning has just become part of that process. Like one day I would really love to know how to like shear sheep and process wool straight from a sheep or another type of textile animal, and like go right from the very beginning of animal to wool to fiber to thread to fabric finally. So, spinning right now is currently where I'm at with that. Right now, I'm just sort of a stay-at-home person. So really the things I do is just try to take care of the house and make food and cook food. I really love cooking, trying to keep things clean, and mainly just doing my own thing, my own crafts and stuff. I'm sort of getting over a big, I guess you could say like hump of depression. I don't know, something like that. Like I'm sort of just coming through some dark stuff that's happened that's made me not really want to do things, and now I'm like getting to a point where I do want to start doing things again.
So, what are your hopes and dreams?
Oh God, I don't even know. I guess I hope one day me and my SO could move out and get our own house that's like just entirely our own, that I can decorate however I want, and it'd be nice to be able to do work again if I'm able to do a job that I like doing, even if it's just like part-time. I don't know. I haven't given hopes and dreams a lot of thought, especially because of the current political climate. What is almost 30 like? Well, oh, okay. When I was a kid, I had this, I don't know where I got this from, but I had a very strange thought. And ever since I had the thought, it's never gone away from me. And this strange thought that appeared in my head as a little elementary school kid is that I was going to die either very, very young or very, very old. And as I get older, the line between what feels very young and very old is increasingly super thin, and also nowhere where I thought it was going to be. Getting old is very strange to think about, and it's just strange to feel like, oh, I've lived almost 3 decades, and yet I don't really feel like I've lived 3 decades. I feel like I've lived hundreds of years, and yet like I could still be a little kid again, if that makes sense, which it probably doesn't make sense. Like, to be honest, if I can add something like, yeah, being 20 wasn't that long ago, but also I can't imagine being the same way I was when I was 20. I feel like I was such a different person on the inside. I felt so different, and probably like outside too, like outward appearance always changes with age, but like on the inside I just feel like, looking back, 20 feels like such a baby age. Like, it feels so young and so not naive in a bad way, but just like you are so brand new to the world, you know? Something that I could do as a kid that I cannot anymore. That I cannot do anymore. I can't go back to how I felt when I was a kid, or like the newness of things. When you're a kid, it's like things feel like they take forever to go through and for time to pass. And when you're an adult, you just realize how fast things go. So I guess you could never get that feeling back of just of like slow time, which can be frustrating, but also something that as an adult you learn you didn't appreciate enough of when you were young.
So, what are the pros and cons of being an adult?
Pros is I can dress how I want and do what I want, and I can get things that I want, and there is no one there to stop me. I can be as silly and crazy and just do my little hobbies, and uh, no one's gonna bother me about having a million hobbies because there's just me. I'm the one in charge of it. Cons of being adult, sometimes it's frustrating having so much power over being able to do things because there's only you to stop you, and that can be too much sometimes. But to be honest, I would rather be an adult than be a kid again. Oh, hell no. I don't want to go back to my early 20s. Hell no. No, I'd rather be my age now. Oh my god. I have more health problems now, but geez, I do not want to return to my early 20s. No. Being in your early 20s is like, you feel like an adult, but also you are not an adult quite yet. And I don't know. I feel like I really matured a lot. And mature doesn't mean like being boring and stuck up and you're like painting your walls gray and you got a 9 to 5 strict office job. Like, maturing is realizing the stuff that I did in my 20s isn't fully who I am. Like, I feel like I am much more myself with age than I was in my 20s when I thought I was so sure of my own identity. And really, it was just like the prologue, I guess, to who I would become.
What is something that is really nostalgic for you?
Okay, the first thing that comes to my head, weirdly enough, is 90s fashion. And I'm not talking about like the grunge 90s getting into Y2K fashion. I'm talking about like the momcore Martha Stewart, Better Homes and Gardens magazine 90s with like the mom jeans, the overalls. There's a very maternal feeling, very like warm feeling I get with mom fashion specifically from the 90s. Just something about the feeling of it, like the very cozy hominess of the 90s. I miss riding my bike, weirdly enough. I miss being able to ride my bike around. I miss my knees not hurting. I miss like just going out on walks just by my lonesome into like the woods or someplace and just sort of being with my own thoughts and stuff. I would just I'd have my little MP3 player, and I'd get my little headphones, my little earbuds, and I'd just go walking in the woods all by myself for hours and hours, just thinking my own thoughts. Hold on. No! Okay. And yeah, I miss the serenity that came with being a part of nature and just having a getaway place. Like, we don't really have third places anymore like we did when I was younger. What's something I don't miss about being a kid? I don't miss the loneliness I had as a kid, because I was a pretty lonely kid. Because we moved around and I felt like I didn't really have a place with friends that I could like stick to and be with for long periods of time. So I ended up like being, I think just like being alone and having to be used to being on my own for long periods of time. And sometimes being alone is really nice. And then other times you wish you felt a part of the groups that you see in like school and stuff. But yeah, I don't feel lonely anymore.
How do you cope with the horrors?
The horrors? I say you make friends. The horrors. I cope with the horrors by trying to make friends with it. Yeah. If we're talking about like the existentialism that comes with just growing up and stuff, I don't know. I would say when I figure it out, I'll tell you. For the most part, the way I cope is by having really good friends and by doing things that I like and finding ways to be more of myself. In terms of like existential things or like things that go wrong, like I said earlier, like political stuff that happens, the way I sort of think about it is I think about my past, and I not just like me personally, but like past history and our ancestors and stuff, and I think about like what they've gone through and how they felt. Like they've probably felt multiple times that the world is ending, that things are collapsing, that everything is going wrong. And sometimes it did happen, and their worlds were like changed to the point of not being recognizable. But you know, I'm here and I am proof that somehow they made it, and I feel like I can make it too. Do you want to know about how to spin yarn? I can't really explain it that well, but I can try. Okay, so what you need is the basics of spinning yarn is you're gonna have to get a stick, and you're gonna need something on the stick. So it's gonna be like some sort of disc. And I've seen examples of people literally using a CD-ROM disc on this stick. And the stick needs to be like it needs to be a little long, maybe about 12 inches or so, with this disc on it. And the way you're gonna get some, they call it roving. The wool before it is spun into yarn is called roving, and you can find really fancy ones. But the way you do is you undo the roving, and you're gonna have to gently pull it very carefully, because the way that wool works is the hairs interlock with each other, and you're going to very gently pull it, and you're going to have to wrap it around the stick and over on top of the disc, and you're going to give the stick a spin. You're going to spin the stick in like clockwise, counterclockwise motion so that your roving becomes tight, and it's sort of like when you twist up like the cords of something, like remember twisting up like the cords of headphones or something with wires, and it gets really tight and it creates a spiral within itself. That's basically what you're doing, is you're making that sort of spiral, and you just sort of, you keep doing that. You like stop and you pull more of the roving until it's a bit tight, and then you spin it until it's like the thickness that you desire. This is very like not good at I'm not good at explaining, because it would be much better if I had a way of showing you it. And really what you should do is you should look it up yourself, because I'm not good at explaining it. But it's very fascinating to me, going like, it is such a simple mechanic that we figured out how to spin yarn and how to spin and make fabric for a millennia, and really the technology for it has not changed. The basics of it have not changed, to the point of you could do it yourself by hand. And I think that's really important to understand, is like where stuff comes from and how it got made by hand, because I think we forget that a lot. Like we forget where things come from and how it's made, and the importance of why we did things the way we did, and that we still have like ways. I think old technology needs to be appreciated the same way that new technology is appreciated nowadays. So yeah, that's my explanation for spinning yarn, and I just spun a interview.
What final comments, thoughts, or advice do you have for the viewers?
If you think you have autism, get a diagnosis, and then if you go to college, use disability services. Oh my goodness. Do not think to yourself, oh, I can handle it. Use your disability services. Use them. Like, even if it's not autism, if it's something else, ADHD, something else, use what is provided for you. Use the hell out of it. Get accommodations, because that is so important when you have a disability. I went for years forcing myself to do things because I thought I could only do them in a neurotypical way. And I really shouldn't have done that, and that was really bad for my mental health. So if you think you have a disability, or you do have a disability, use the resources. They're really shitty, because disability care in especially the United States is like not the best. But when they're there, when you have them, use them. And if you can, advocate for them and advocate for more disability care. Yeah, okay. And learn about old technologies and how things used to be made and stuff, and how they're still made. Yeah, okay, that's it. I'm gonna play Elder Scrolls.